The House has now resumed its sitting. The member for Bordentown West was continuing his address. He's not here.
Mr. Speaker, the member was here, but he had an urgent call to go outside. He'll be in momentarily. The clerk spoke to him about a particular item which he went to dispose.
Sorry. The member for Bordentown West continuing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I recognize, as I said before, that this is my...
The member should be reminded he has 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am cognizant that this is my first budget address and throne speech. And one of the things that I want to do, Mr. Speaker, is, as I said before, that when you look at the volume of information that has been prepared by the Ministry of Finance, it is a lot of work. And I want the record to reflect my appreciation to the Honorable Minister of Finance and his team, in particular Mr. Nixon and Mr. Jefferson, who I have worked with in the past personally, and they are committed public servants. They have been in the government for quite some while, Mr. Speaker, and it's important for us to recognize that we do a lot of talent within the civil service, and many of them could have gone out in the private sector, made far more money than they could have in the public service, but they chose to remain in the civil service and serve the country. So I want to recognize their contribution to the budget process. I also like to thank, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Deputy Governor for taking the time to meet with the opposition. I think it was about last week Wednesday, to go through the progress that was being made in the civil service and the initiatives that he's undertaking. We had a very frank conversation, and I'm very happy that we did, because it's important to recognize also that we do, while some people may think, it's just politics, there's still faces behind a lot of the work. And there are a lot of faceless individuals that contribute every day within the public service. And Mr. Speaker, just want this honorable House to know, and the Caymanian public, is that I believe that we have a Public Accounts Committee scheduled for December 12th. And one of the purposes of that PSC meeting is to thank the many public servants that received a pretty good audit, where the Auditor General had highlighted their progress. And I know the chairman of the PSC, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, has sent some letters thanking them. I think it is important to the public to know that while the PSC is there to keep some institutions in check and serve as a check and balance, it is also important that the PSC also recognizes when people do good work. And as I said, there are very good people in the civil service and other statutory bodies that get up every day, sacrifice, and serve the country. And we want to publicly thank those people for the work that they have done and the progress that they have made in between audits, as recognized by the Auditor General. So people need to understand that the members in this House, even though we have a job to do, we can still remain fair and give people credit when credit is due. And it's also important for the public to understand that while it's very easy to pick on the government and pick on civil servants, is that they're also people, and they also have families, and they also do work hard. So I think it's very right of us inside here to thank them in that regard. And I know the Honorable Deputy Governor is one of them that received one of the good audits for one of the areas that he was involved with. And I know he also received a letter from the Honorable Leader of the Opposition as chairman of the PSC on behalf of the PSC. But nonetheless, we would like to highlight that publicly so at least the Caymanian people can know that there are people within the public service that do good work and serve the country well. Mr. Speaker, one of the last issues I want to touch on is crime, in that it is one area that, as the country gets a little bit more developed and we get more people, naturally there will be crime. But I think we should also recognize that when a 21-year-old or 25-year-old or someone in the early 20s or at whatever age commit a crime, they did not become a criminal on their 21st birthday. If you go back and you look at their environment in which they were in when they were younger and the issues that they had to deal with, we could directly see some young people is not really much of a surprise. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, from even visiting the schools, I can tell you that some of the young people and how they engage us, we have a bright future ahead of us with a lot of our young people. But we need to make sure that we take the time out to invest in them properly so that they can succeed in Cayman. The world that we're living in is a different world. And every single member of this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, I think it's safe to say that they have more yesterdays than they do tomorrow. The future does not belong to any of us inside here, but rather to those coming behind us. And it's important for us to leave behind a Cayman that they can all be proud of and one that will hopefully be more prosperous and more better. I want to close, Mr. Speaker, and highlight a point that I made earlier when I said that many of us inside here grew up in the good old days, where Cayman was completely different, and we had a world of possibilities in front of us. But as with anything, as you get bigger and you get more development, you get more challenges. I don't say problems, I say challenges. But what I can say to the Caymanian people is that because our challenges are made by us, they can be fixed by us. And what it will require is will and putting together petty differences. In my first speech in this legislative assembly, Mr. Speaker, I told a story where Napoleon was asked to explain the absence of great statesmen in France, to which Napoleon replied, in order to obtain power, one has to display utter pettiness, but in order to exercise power, one has to show true greatness. You can't expect somebody to be petty and great at the same time, either one or the other. And while I do recognize that this is politics and it is an adversarial system, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, in the little time I've been elected, I have been so tempted many times to just rain that fire and brimstone and find that fire. But I recognize that with the position of trust that I've been placed in, I can no longer just speak my views, because I also do represent the people of Boddington West. And they are good people, they're decent people, and I can't embarrass them. So the way in which Chris behaved prior to being elected versus how Chris is doing, I don't want anyone to feel as if they have lost the fire, because believe me, it is still there, just yearning to come out. But I have to be responsible. You know, I recognize that we are in a business that compete with other countries, and our competitors are looking for every reason to tell people not to do business with the Cayman Islands. We already have our own challenges, and it is not my intention to add to those challenges. So I would like to wish the government well with their budget. At the end of the day, while I do have some fundamental policy differences with the government, I still believe that we should be going more with regards to healthcare. I think we need to definitely give people greater access to their pensions. And I believe that we need to do more for the mortgages. At the end of the day, this is our democratic institution. We are under the Westminster system, where it is governed by the will of the majority. So at this point, I wish the government well, and at the end of the day, it will be the Caymanian people and the Cayman electorate that will judge their performance in 4 years, in the next, 3.5 years, and decide where to go from there. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity, and good luck on that side in terms of getting your business done. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? The Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise this evening to offer my contribution on the 2018-2019 budget. Before I begin, I would like to congratulate the Governor, Her Excellency, Ms. Helen Kilpatrick, CB, on her throne speech, the Premier, the Honorable Alan McLaughlin, on his budget policy statement, and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Roy McTaggart, on his budget address. Mr. Speaker, I also congratulate the Premier and government for 4 years of consistent, dedicated, hard work to strengthen the country's fiscal performance in line with the ratios stipulated in the Public Management and Finance Law. Mr. Speaker, debt ratio, which must not exceed 80% of operating revenues, stands at 22.3% for 2018, reducing to 17.4% by 2019. Well below the recommended threshold, government is forecast to record a net operating surplus of $86.6 million and $65.1 million in 2019, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the cash reserves are required to be sufficient to cover 90 days of operating expenses. For 2018, there's enough cash in the bank to cover 167 days, almost twice the ratio. For 2019, even with the payment of the bullet bond, which is due in November 2019, reserves are sufficient to cover 92 days of core government operating expenditure, which is still above where we need to be in terms of compliance. Mr. Speaker, the debt service ratio, which measures the cost of servicing all public sector debt, is a proportion of central government's revenue. It's recommended not to exceed 10%. For 2018, stands at 8.6%. Mr. Speaker, these ratios show that the country's finances are in good health and provide our citizens with confidence. I am humbled and honored by the confidence shown in me by the people of Cayman Brac West and Little Cayman, who afforded me the opportunity and privilege of representing them in this Legislative Assembly for a 4th term. I am honored to retain the ministries of District Administration, Tourism, and Transport, and I remain committed to being an agent for positive change with responsibility for the growth and development of tourism portfolio in these islands. I look forward specifically to navigating the tourism industry through the next phases of growth and development, working to provide balance and sustainability for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, alongside my colleague from Cayman Brac East, and with my colleagues in Cabinet and caucus, my team in the ministry, in the private sector, and public at large. Mr. Speaker, the people of these islands have every reason to be proud of the tourism industry's performance. Year over year, results are encouraging, and indications for future performance over the upcoming fiscal period are positive. This is good news for our country, better news for our economy, and should provide reassurance to our people that our future has a very bright light. With tourism being the second pillar to our economy, the industry is shouldering great responsibility, and it is delivering beyond expectations. Last year alone, total visitor expenditure from cruise and stayover amounted to $627.8 million, reflecting a contribution of 46.2 from stayover and 165 million from cruise passengers. Mr. Speaker, in our ministry, with our responsibilities, we view our responsibility of driving revenue. And from the government standpoint, revenue and income in a budget debate is what drives healthcare, it's what drives education, it's what drives social services, and it's what drives the government services and the quality and standard of life that we are used to and will continue to get better. Mr. Speaker, in this budget address, I will recap the tourism industry performance over the past 4 years. I will provide a summary of stayover arrivals between 2013 and 2017, and will speak to the tourism industry's contribution to our economy. Mr. Speaker, I think it's very timely to do this based on the contribution from the last two speakers. I heard from both that our stayover visitation was flat. So I'll take this opportunity to go through where our visitation really is and to show the type of growth that we're having in it. I'll outline the programs, the projects, and policies that will be undertaken by the ministry, which are intended to enable the Cayman Islands to remain as a success story of the Caribbean and the islands that we call home. Mr. Speaker, 2016 was a notable year for visitation, with over 2 million guests visiting our shores. 385,000 plus of those visitors were air arrivals. Over the last 4 years, stayover visitation has increased at an unprecedented rate. Growth has been maintained despite challenges at the local, regional, and international levels. Just a brief recap of the industry's success, and I'll begin from 2013 onwards, Mr. Speaker. At year-end 2013, air arrivals were the highest on record since 2001 and were 7.4% higher than 2012. In 2014, several months exceeded the highest recorded totals in 14 years. By year-end, we had surpassed the 2013, which was already a record-breaking year. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, stayover arrivals topped 385,000, which at the time was the highest in our island's history. 7 out of the 12 months in 2015 registered their best totals ever. 2016, air arrivals softened due to the rise in the Zika virus, which affected the entire region for most of the year. At the same time, weakening of the British pound following the Brexit vote, coupled with random terror attacks caused by tourists to postpone travel plans. This negativity impacted inbound travel, especially from Europe, Mr. Speaker. And at the local level, Mr. Speaker, hotel accommodations had reached saturation, which was only alleviated in November with the opening of the Kimpton, followed by a Margaritaville soft opening in January. But, Mr. Speaker, despite facing such challenging environment, the year-end results for 2016 marginally increased over 2015 and still amounted to another record-breaking year. Our tourism sector not only held its own, but outpaced most of our Caribbean competition. Mr. Speaker, for 2017, the pattern of stable, consistent growth continues. Stayover arrivals for the month of April 2017 were the highest of any April in the history of the Cayman Islands. The arrival of 38,900 visitors represented an increase of 12% over the corresponding period of 2016, eclipsing the previous record of 36,000. Just 2 months later, Mr. Speaker, air arrivals for June were up 12% over the corresponding period 2016. Mr. Speaker, heading into summer, July and August were both record-breaking months with a combined total of 77,000 visitors. For the first time ever, July arrivals surpassed March, which is typically, as you well know, our best performing month for visitation. It was up 6.8% over July of 2016. Air arrivals in August were the best of any August on record, up 9.9% over August 2016. For July, as well as August, the United States, Canada, and Latin America regions all registered increases, with Latin America showing the most significant growth at 23% for July. Mr. Speaker, results from Latin America, specifically Brazil and Argentina, are equally impressive, with air arrivals from this region being up 45% in June, 23% in July, and 51% in August compared to corresponding periods in 2016. Mr. Speaker, this brief but comprehensive overview paints an accurate, impressive picture of the steady growth in air arrivals from 2013 to August 2017. And I believe the flat that was repeated or said really was looking at the 2016 numbers. As I explained, there were some challenges there, and it didn't have the kind of growth that we had become used to, but it was still about a 1.4% growth over the year before and higher numbers. September of 2017 is the best September in recorded history, and for the fourth consecutive month was a record-breaking arrival. September was up 14.7% over the same period the previous year. And Mr. Speaker, I speak to the areas that they come from because these are the areas, obviously, that we are marketing to. The USA was up 20%, and the Southeast region continues to be the highest performing market year over year, with growth of 39%. Canada was up 24%, UK and Ireland was up 7%, and Latin America was up 29%. So basically, the target markets are being reached, and we're seeing the results from those. We're currently trending this year at 5.2% higher than where we were this time last year, with specific numbers equates to 15,663 additional visitors to date. And Mr. Speaker, what this means for our economy is that that's $19 million more dollars that have been spent this year in the Cayman Islands by tourists, excess tourists that have come. And based on these figures, I'm cautiously optimistic that for the first time ever, stayover arrivals will cross a historic threshold by reaching 400,000 by the end of this year, 2017. As the minister with oversight for the tourism industry, I'm extremely encouraged by these results. And I like to always say, tourism is everyone's business. And strong growth and record-breaking results are the things we should all justifiably be proud of, because we've all made our contribution to it. The tourism industry is the twin pillar of our economy, and as such, cannot overstate its importance in driving inward investment, creating jobs, and contributing to the GDP of our country. Nor can I overemphasize the dynamic nature of this industry and the strong competition we face in the region and beyond. Continued growth in this sector is helping to keep businesses operating, people employed, revenue filtering through to the service providers on all points of the spectrum, from the large hotels to the small farmers supplying fresh produce. And always remember, Mr. Speaker, growth provides opportunity for our people. Ministry, and I recognize that the outstanding performance is not a license to divert attention or slow down our efforts. Instead, we need to be re-energized by this success and more determined to ensure that growth is sustained and the benefits are widely shared amongst our citizens. The ministry has worked extremely hard to make inroads to boost visitor arrivals. We've seized opportunities and endeavored to ensure our actions were prudent and purposeful. Decision-making has been well-informed and risks thoroughly evaluated before taking bold steps. Throughout the course of our tenure, we have made every effort to be inclusive, considerate, and cooperative with stakeholders, and above all, honest, equitable, and effective in our approach. Mr. Speaker, while air arrivals soar, cruise passenger arrivals declined. Cruise passenger arrivals for this year, 2017, from January to September totaled 1,183,000, down from 1,280,000 for the same period in 2016, a variance of 97,200. But, Mr. Speaker, this can be explained by 38 cruise ship calls being lost primarily due to bad weather, equating to a corresponding loss of 94,000 passengers. And as you remember, this happened in January and February of this 2017 year. For the month of September, the arrivals are up by 14% over 2016 September. The double-digit increase was due to some ships being diverted as a result of the impact of Irma, which devastated parts of the Eastern Caribbean and Puerto Rico. Consequently, we expect, Mr. Speaker, to finish the year with the same number of arrivals on cruise as we did last year. And I'd like to say at this time, Mr. Speaker, that these storm-impacted islands continue to be in our thoughts and our prayers. And I take this time to mention the missions that the Premier spearheaded with members of the government, members that worked extremely hard, members public sector, private sector that contributed to the different islands that Cayman Airways was able to fly to and help the individuals that had been struck by those hurricanes. Mr. Speaker, having set the stage and established a strong, solid foundation, the focus for 2018 and 19 is to build on that positive performance so many have worked hard to achieve. And I take the opportunity to say that the foundation, as I talked about the ratios that have been met, we had gone through a period of not being in ratio and our budget having to be looked over and approved. This is the first year, Mr. Speaker, that we are out of ratio and approval from the FCO. This is the first year that we are controlling and looking at the infrastructure, the education, health, the needs that desperately need to be worked on, improved, and the budget that has been put forward by this government recognizes those needs, have identified those needs. And as we look at how the money has been apportioned, it may have been, if we'd had more education, health, would have been able to receive more. But the budget had to be balanced, had to be fair, and we had to try to include every one of our citizens across, recognizing all the different needs. And obviously there will be some tweaks tweaking and some improvements, changes as we review it together, but I think it's an excellent platform to stand on to go forward, and certainly I'm proud to be part of the government that has offered that. We will continue to work closely with our partners across all facets of the tourism and hospitality industry, Mr. Speaker. Results confirm this two-pronged approach introduced at the start of my tenure is working well. Consequently, its proven principles will be maintained during the upcoming budget cycle and will be revised and tweaked as necessary. The Cayman Islands are blessed with abundant natural beauty above and below the waterline. But we are devoid of the types of natural resources countries typically export, like oil or precious metals. Here in Cayman, tourism is our export. As a vacation destination, we are selling experiences of our country to tourists, and they pay for those experiences with the foreign currency they spend on their accommodation, transportation, meals, attractions, events, etc. In essence, tourism brings the market to the product, and in so doing, it brings the foreign exchange needed to fuel the economic engine that runs this country. The money that visitors spend goes directly into stimulating our economy and ultimately into benefiting our people across the length and breadth of this country, from West Bay to East End, Cayman Brac, to Little Cayman, Mr. Speaker. And again, if we look at a country that has natural resources and you see the indicator that they've exported X amount of iron ore, as that's exported, cash comes in for that. This is the same way we export tourism. That's how we get our foreign exchange, and that's the model that we work on. Mr. Speaker, in terms of visitor expenditure, if we consider each stay-over visitor spends approximately $1,200 CI dollars, not including airfare on island. If you put the airfare, you will say average $2,000. But we know that some that come from the Northeast United States spend $10,000, $15,000 in the week that they're here. So we look at the average, we multiply that times the 400,000 visitors, and we arrive at the sum of $480 million, or $571 million, being injected into our economy this year alone from stay-over arrivals. So the easy way to think about, we have just exported an asset, and we've been paid in foreign exchange $480 million CI dollars for 2017. For cruise passengers, taking into account 1.7 million visitors, and the person spends on average $115 US a day, the cruise arrivals will contribute $195 million US to the national coffers. We estimate, based on performance to date and forward bookings to the end of 2017, to finish the year with a combined on-island visitor spend of approximately $650 million CI dollars, or $770 million US from cruise and stayover arrivals. Direct spend, Mr. Speaker, without a multiplier effect. If we compare this to the combined on-island spend from 2014, we see that visitor expenditure increased $30.2 million CI. What this basically means, Mr. Speaker, is that from 2014 to the end of 2017, we've had a 9.4% increase in spend by our tourism market. I think that that is something that a lot of countries would like to be able to brag about and very envious of. The stayover arrivals, 382,000 visitors times $1,200 is how we get to the $459 million CI for 2014. Mr. Speaker, the other indicator of your stay or visitation is an ADR. I know that you well know that stands for average daily rates. And what average daily rates are is what they pay for the room at the hotel. Irrespective of where they originate, visitors want to enjoy experiences beyond expectations to tell their friends and their family back home. They want excellent service, they want value for money, and our ability to deliver on these crucial elements, coupled with the value-added offers from industry partners, help to drive demand for Caymanian vacation. High demand is reflected in regional performance, which rank the Cayman Islands against our competitors. Indicators such as the ADR for hotel rooms put us number 2 in the region, with an average daily rate of $362, up 1.86% for the year. High ADRs translate into a tourism industry making a higher contribution because of the affluence of the visitor and the spend that they will have in the island. With tourism being a significant contributor to our economy, Mr. Speaker, it follows that the way to grow our economy is to grow tourism. One way to accomplish this is to grow arrivals. The ministry is committed to reaching the 400,000 mark by the end of the year, and all indications are positive for reaching that goal. Mr. Speaker, the other way to achieve growth is by looking at all the ways visitors on island spend and appropriated and increasing our share of the pie by leveraging the visitor experience, by improving services, enhancing attractions, and creating promotions to make visitors' vacation truly memorable. We are effectively leveraging tourism to convert the beauty of our islands into jobs and opportunities for our people. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, if we have tourists that are here in increasing numbers, with increasing room rates, with affluence, they're looking for other ways and means to enjoy the island. This is the opportunity that we drive to create businesses for young entrepreneurs and Caymanians who stay in the industry. Remembering now that the threshold for tour, taxi, small business is something that Caymanians take advantage of. Caymanians get involved. It's a lot different than trying to build a bricks and mortar hotel, which takes hundreds of millions of dollars. But the entrepreneurial spirit is alive when we create the opportunities for them to have success. Mr. Speaker, behind every tourist is a long list of people who benefit from the variety of jobs. For every visitor who occupies a bed, for example, there's someone to take care of his room, someone to prepare the accounts in that property, someone to manage that property, someone to be the engineer in that property, the taxi drivers, the tour operators, the tour guides, the dive buddies, the chefs, the bar backs, the bartenders, beverage servers, and I could go on and on. But the tourism industry is a trickle down all the way through, and we work hard to make sure that the opportunities are being made available. Every visitor makes a valuable contribution to our economy, Mr. Speaker. The better their experience they have while vacationing with us, the more likely they are to come back. Mr. Speaker, exit surveys conducted by the Department of Tourism tell us that 51% of our visitors have been here before and are returning at least their second visit. Their decision to return is influenced by the experiences they had the time before, and this is why it's so important that every person who works in tourism to show Cayman kind. And it is why the Department of Tourism conducts pride training in service excellence to help ensure that every visitor interaction is the best that it can be. And Mr. Speaker, I use the example that if you spend $100 to attract a visitor to the Cayman Islands, and they only come one time, it costs you $100 to attract them. But Mr. Speaker, if they come two times out of that $100 that you use to attract them, it costs you $50. But we push to have them come 10 times. So then it only costs $10 as an example. So that's the reason why repeat guests are so important to the marketing dollars as you spend them. The Cayman Islands tourism industry performance is currently among the best in the region. And at the risk of oversimplifying this formula for continued success, it's distilled into a few key elements. Maintaining consistency, high results, is not rocket science by any means, but it requires the right ingredients in the right quantities at the right time to be effective. To break this down a little farther, industry, experience, and communication are key. All the players, public and private, need to be working together towards a common goal with no silos and no communication barriers. Stakeholder groups have to collaborate, share ideas, support each other on a consistent basis. Otherwise, efforts will be diluted and goals will not be achieved. Getting everyone to sing from the same hymn sheet hasn't always been that easy, but we have persevered and our efforts are paying dividends as indicated by monthly results. Mr. Speaker, another important element in the formula for success is making sure qualified Caymanians are matched to good-paying jobs so that more and more Caymanian families feel the economic benefit as the industry grows. Mr. Speaker, from a marketing perspective, I always like to use the example of if you fish in a pond that has no fish, it doesn't matter how much you paid for your fishing gear, you're still not going to catch any fish. From the marketing, we have to make sure we market to the right people at the right time and make it easy for them to get here. When they arrive, we have to make sure they have great accommodations and plenty of unforgettable things to experience every day of their stay. As the research and the mining of information goes on, the examples are interesting. To share one with you, one of the credit card companies that shares their mining information is more overseas vacations are purchased on a Tuesday than any other day of the week. So what does that mean for your marketing? It means that you're going to make sure you have something in the marketplace on Sunday and Monday and make sure somebody answers the phone or the internet on Tuesday to book that. That's the kind of sophisticated level and sophistication that goes into the marketing and also goes into the regional and global fight that we're in to match our island destination with our competitors. The foundation we've established to underpin the tourism industry's sustained growth and development well into the future is based on industry experience, knowledge, and skill. A supportive government with proactive policies, maintain the right balance between marketing, airlift, accommodations, and attractions. In real terms, when one sector grows 10%, the others must also grow in tandem. Making sure that the benefits of growth are flowing through to service providers while providing services and opportunities for Caymanians who live and work here. It means managing and leveraging the visitor experience that I talked about earlier. It's making sure that the funds tourism generates are reinvested to provide quality infrastructure, education, airport, roads, taxis, public transport. I should mention Councillor David White now and the work that he's been doing with public transport and the taxis, and I'm sure he'll have a lot more to say about that in his contribution, but excellent job. Which in turn supports further activities. And I also take the opportunity to mention Minister Hugh and the work that he did the last 4 years in the ministry when he was a counselor. I think he's happy to see some of the successes we're having that he contributed so much to. Thank you, Minister. It means managing yield in line with capacity, as was done recently when room stocks were constrained. I had a quick chat before this, and the question was, what happened in 2016? And when you don't have any new rooms that are added to your market, and the rooms are already full, obviously your arrivals and the ability to fill a room is flat because you have no rooms. That's what happened until the new hotels were open in 2016. Faced with the challenge of market saturation, the choice was to do nothing, wait for more rooms to come in the market, or turn the challenge into an opportunity, as the ministry opted to do. The focus shifted to the development of niche markets to satisfy the low valleys that were available when rooms were available, such as sports tourism meetings, incentives, weddings, honeymoons, as the means of spreading arrivals more evenly year-round. Mr. Speaker, by successfully transitioning our business model to avoid the peaks and troughs of seasonality, businesses and entrepreneurs benefited from a steady stream of income, which in some instances fueled business expansion. And I think that as we explain the model and explain how the growth has taken place, it will give a lot of comfort to young entrepreneurs and business people that are looking at the industry and thinking whether they should grow their business or hire more people. And I also hope that it makes more people realize that it's a good industry and a good place to come and work. By way of example, recognizing the slew of potential benefits to be derived from sports tourism, government has supported a variety of partnerships to build brand awareness and drive incremental visitation for Cayman and the sister islands. Events were channeled to fit between May and September, and tournaments were also hosted in Cayman Brac to bring benefit to businesses in the sister islands. This allowed full advantage to be taken of the upgraded sports facilities, new facilities at the Charles Kirkconnell International Airport, and the improved airlift and the Saab 340B Plus aircraft. For the weddings and romance sector, our islands played host to 325 luxury wedding professionals who traveled to Grand Cayman in June of 2017 to experience our destination offerings for weddings and romance travelers. Mr. Speaker, the success of this strategy led to the launch in July 2017 of Cayman Vows, a luxury print and digital magazine publication devoted exclusively to the Cayman Islands destination wedding and honeymoon services. The first edition featured never-before-seen photos from the Grand Cayman wedding of Grace Byers, we know her as Geely, star of the Fox hit series Empire. This was a deliberate tactic. Who better to sell the attributes of Cayman than a Caymanian on a global stage? 40,000 copies of Cayman Vows have been issued principally across the United States, Canada, to impact the purchasing decisions of consumers within the $13 billion annual romance market. 2 months later, in September, Grace featured as the face of the Cayman Islands in an exclusive print, online, and digital ad campaign, which will run till September 2018. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table the magazine.
So ordered.
Members just asked a minute for him to be circulated. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I think you have your copy. I just asked the members to have a quick look through it when they get a chance. It is an example of some of the marketing, some of the tools, and I believe that this is a highlight considering it's a Caymanian star on a global stage coming back to her home to help promote the Cayman Islands, enjoying it, and the magazine itself is well recognized and well distributed in North America and Canada. So these are some of the initiatives that I believe every member in this honorable house is rightly proud of and being involved in it. Examples, it's just two of the many achievements gained by niche marketing strategy. They illustrate what can be accomplished when the industry experience, knowledge, skill, and collaboration that I spoke about earlier work together to look at niche market creativity. Managing the balance is much easier said than done, but when the ingredients are applied in the right way, at the right time, in the right amounts, the rewards can be astounding. We want another magazine? Okay. Ultimately, the proof is in the numbers. It isn't by accident, Mr. Speaker, that the months of June, July, August, and September were all record breakers. Those results correlate to deliberate marketing tactics, doing exactly what they were designed to do. Government, ministry partners, private sector shareholders working together to grow tourism in the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, the opening of new resorts alleviated our capacity constraints by adding a combined total of approximately 10% more rooms to the rental market. Along with Airbnb, in addition to large hotels, sites like Airbnb allow for the advertising of smaller guest homes and individual apartments. Mr. Speaker, total room stock today is 6,095. In terms of a breakdown for each island, Grand Cayman has 5,697, including the condominiums and villas. Cayman Brac, 258, and Little Cayman, 140. Hotel occupancy has remained high throughout 2017, as reflected in the ADR, and projections for the winter season raise no cause for concern. The additional rooms meet current need, but as arrivals grow, so too must capacity. Mr. Speaker, developers are responding, and planning permission has been granted for several new hotel properties over the next 2-3 years. These include a 60-unit, 4-star boutique hotel on the site of the old Treehouse restaurant, which broke ground recently, a proposed $300 million 5-star development on Pageant Beach. Development comprises 450 rooms, projected to open in 2020. The same developer is near completion on a 42-room boutique hotel close to Lawrence Boulevard on the 7-Mile Beach. The Dart Group also has plans for a 250-room 5-star resort on 7-Mile Beach corridor. Consideration is being given to the redevelopment of the Grand Cayman Beach Suites, which will offer approximately 80 rooms on completion and renovation. And in Bodden Town, Mr. Speaker, the St. James Point development is slated to deliver 200 rooms plus 90 residential units to open in the next 2 years. Mr. Speaker, for the next 12 months, we see Kimpton Residences open, Beach Suites possible, Locale, which is the Lawrence Boulevard, and another 180 rooms opening on in Margaritaville, which means that we will have another 5% rooms available opening in the next 12 months, which obviously the correlation between rooms and the flights, seats that are needed, the marketing, and the added visitation, which contributes to the economy, is very positive for the next 12 months based on these openings. The proposed investments are a clear indication that the tourism pie is not being split different ways. The tourism pie is growing. It is growing because the economy is healthy due to the prudent fiscal management and good governance practices demonstrated by this government. When you add a lucrative banking environment and a sound legal and regulatory framework to the equation, it is not difficult to understand why more hotel properties are planned for development on a solid foundation our tourism industry provides. Investors trust it is robust enough to sustain development, and they have confidence that their investments will be successful. Mr. Speaker, having brought our country's net debt ratio, cash reserve ratio, and debt service ratios back in line to where they should be, investors are showing they have confidence in this administration and in this country. So too does Moody's, one of the world's foremost financial rating agencies, which affirms the Cayman Islands' creditworthiness to be AAA, a ranking our islands has retained since the year 2000. These are just some of the competitive advantages that make our jurisdiction an attractive place to do business. Mr. Speaker, it has taken hard work, effort by this government to restore our country's finances to this point. It hasn't been easy, but it has been worthwhile. That is why it bears repeating, and why having restored economic health and prosperity, the long-term prospects for our islands and our tourism industry remain stable and strong. Mr. Speaker, in the same way that finance and tourism are the twin pillars to our economy, accommodations and airlift are the twin pillars of the tourism industry. To sustain tourism growth over the long term, increases in one sector must be reflected in the other. Otherwise, as said before, we wind up with empty rooms or empty seats, neither of which is good for the industry. In addition to wanting choice in accommodations, visitors want choice in the airlines and gateways that bring them here. Over the last 18 months, airlift has increased. American Airlines launched a new service from Dallas. United Airlines is offering more seats from Chicago. British Airways upgraded to a Boeing 777 aircraft, which comes in weekly. It lands here every week. Right. Well, British Airways upgraded to a 777, which lands at Owen Roberts Airport 3 or 4 times every week. Southwest Airlines launched new service from Fort Lauderdale, and Cayman Airways launched a service into Roatan. For the benefit of anyone that does not understand, 777s land at Owen Roberts Airport every week. And they land very safely. We can never be complacent in terms of assuming that visitors will just arrive to our islands because of the excellent tourism product we have to offer. Rather, the Ministry and Department of Tourism and Cayman Airways work hard at looking at new routes into our islands, particularly from the United States. Arrivals from North America account for over 82% of our stayover visitation year to date. It's a key factor for our industry, and I'm particularly pleased with the double-digit increases registered by gateways such as Dallas and Houston. Having stimulated the market with various promotions earlier in the year, results confirm the Cayman Islands was elevated to top of mind with consumers. I want to now turn, Mr. Speaker, my attention to human capital development, because if we do all that I've spoken about earlier and we don't have human capital development and success for the Caymanian people to work in this industry, the industry will not succeed, it will not be strong, it will not have the competitive edge of our Cayman kind people involved. As the industry grows, so does the corresponding need for more workers. Given that tourism is our export in this competitive market, every tourist who arrives on our shores must receive the best experience of our islands have to offer. That experience cannot be authentic if it fails to include our people. As Minister for Tourism, I am working every day to see Caymanians at every touch point from arrival right through to departure, because no one else can provide a Caymanian experience like a Caymanian. This is why the tourism industry are so important as our asset. Caymanian people are so important. Investing in human capital is critically important and a priority. Training is provided to bridge the gap between skilled supply and demand, and we're working hard to encourage Caymanians of all ages to seek employment in the tourism and hospitality sectors. Mr. Speaker, as you well know, the Hospitality School was introduced to develop a cohort of qualified Caymanians that could assume the roles which are, to a great extent, performed by work permit holders. It's opening in 2014, during its first 2 years, 38 students attained the City and Guilds qualification. In the last academic year, 38 students began the program. Diving was added as a course option. Those who pursued the dive training option have become PADI certified, rescue trained, and have completed a captain's course. From this class, 38 students, class of 38 students, 28 graduated, and 8 have reset their exams in order to complete the program. In September 2017, the current academic year, 38 students have commenced the course, and with the midterm exams now behind them, the students will begin to go out on work experience assignments. As well as investing in the hospitality school, ministry also provides scholarships for tourism-based subjects in partnership with Johnson & Wales University. Mr. Speaker, to date, 250 students have benefited from the Ministry of Tourism scholarship support. We currently have 37 active scholars, including 4 at Johnson & Wales. And we are prepared to do more, Mr. Speaker, much more, to match Caymanians to jobs in the tourism industry they're qualified and experienced to do. Feedback from private sector conveys that attraction and retention of skilled employees is an ongoing challenge. Ministry has always maintained an open-door policy with respect to all aspects of tourism, and as such, invite and encourage interested Caymanians to let us know if they are seeking positions in the industry. And Mr. Speaker, I just note that if you follow the registration at the hospitality school every year, it increases and increases, and we will continue to fund it because we want more and more people to apply. For every resume we receive in the ministry, we will ensure that the applicant becomes registered with the relevant agencies if they aren't already, and everything possible will be done to place that individual in a suitable position. And our efforts do not stop there. As a direct result of policies implemented through the Ministry of Tourism, jobs have been created, and emphasis continues to be placed on training, succession planning, and upward mobility. The goal is to improve performance through personal development to ensure that employees are adept at meeting the industry's current and future demands. Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center has been outstanding with respect to developing the youth of Cayman, both in respect of its employees and through its student education programs. $65,000 has been spent on direct training costs over the past 2 years. In addition, significant time is spent upskilling, on-the-job training, predominantly the younger developing employees. Earlier this year, a suitably trained and qualified young Caymanian, Adam Jackson, was promoted to take over as the new aquarist. This is the first time in the company's history that the expert role has been filled by a Caymanian. In respect of the company's 102 employees, 31 staff members, that is 30% of the total staff complement, is under 30 years of age, and none of the company's staff in that age bracket is on a work permit. This demonstrates the company's keen interest and success in attracting and developing the youth of our nation. Only 4% of the company's employees, Mr. Speaker, are on work permit. The composition of the remaining 96 is equally split between Caymanian and permanent residents, or RERC by marriage. Mr. Speaker, the Weather Service continues to develop staff by providing training development opportunities to support succession planning. Includes mid-level tech training, radar training. One staff member is taking online bachelor's degree in forecasting, and 2 staff members are pursuing master's degrees. Additionally, the U.S. National Weather Service launched a new significantly advanced weather satellite called the GOES-R, which provides significant benefits and applications relevant to the Cayman Islands. These include improved hurricane tracking and intensity forecasts. Mr. Speaker, I think in the last 6 weeks we have depended on the National Weather Service quite a bit, and they met the challenge. I congratulate them this evening on the hard work they do, and certainly the work they're doing to move young Caymanians up. Mr. Speaker, all of these examples highlight the ministry's commitment to education, training, and human capital development. To this end, the sum of $815,000 has been allocated per year 2018 and 2019 to fund tourism, education, and scholarships. We encourage interested young people to apply for a tourism scholarship or take advantage of the hospitality school or the programs offered by UCCI. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to turn now to District Administration, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, my constituency. Make note of the continued support in this budget for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. The budget vote provides for services and quality of life issues to continue to grow as we work to make Cayman Brac and Little Cayman sustainable. The government services and the management of executive assets on Cayman Brac and Little Cayman have both shown increases in the budget this year as the islands grow. From 2014, passenger arrivals have increased by approximately 25% to date, as the expanded Cayman Brac Beach Resort and private villas have added rooms to the market. In the 12-month period, September 2016 to September 2017, 16 posts have been filled within district administration portfolio, and it's broken down as 8 within district administration, 5 within Public Works Department, 2 at the daycare center, and 1 within the sports department. Mr. Speaker, these roles include customs and immigration officers, accounts positions in the finance department, child care, teaching, support assistants, as well as electricians, painter, and cleaner. Mr. Speaker, the ministerial responsibility for district admin also has oversight for the sustainable development of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. This includes the development of infrastructure and implementation of programs aimed at improving the quality of life in both islands and the services made available. Currently under construction, the Brac 25-meter pool, accommodating 8 swimming lanes for short course championship swimming. The new pool will meet the International Swimming Federation certification. The base of the pool and rough end of plumbing and electrical works have been completed. The construction of the pool walls are currently in progress. The equipment room and holding tanks are also underway. Substantial completion of the pool is expected for February 2018. Mr. Speaker, the Brac Multipurpose Hall has been under construction in phases since 2011. The exterior of the building was completed in 2013. A construction contract has been awarded to complete the interior finishes and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire components of the building. Mr. Speaker, construction start is planned for November 2017, with completion earmarked for summer 2018. The multipurpose hall is also built to Cat 5 to provide additional hurricane shelter relief. Mr. Speaker, the Affordable Home Program was established in 2006 to meet the housing needs, and to date, 4 houses have been built in the eastern area, the Water and Place housing complex, and 18 houses have been built and sold at the West End housing community. Currently, 3 houses are under construction at the West End, and substantial completion and handover to these owners is planned for second quarter 2018. Mr. Speaker, in Little Cayman, the public dock and boat launching ramp at Mary's Bay in Little Cayman's northeast coast was completed in 2015. Construction is currently in progress to extend the dock another 60 feet, and a public park is being cleared. Substantial completion of these 2 projects is planned for March 2018. The docking facility provides a dock-to-dock transfer between Cayman Brac and Little Cayman by boat of approximately 15 minutes, weather permitting. There's also a dock partnership between McCoy's Lodge on the west end of Little Cayman to provide emergency docking for small boats and pleasure boats and dive boats on the north side, that if there's a need, they can go in there rather than have to go all the way around to the channel on the south side. Mr. Speaker, the Port Authority in Cayman Brac has done very good work. They've improved their building, and they have had a 7.5% increase between June 2016. They had a movement of 1,940 containers, and the following year, ending June 2017, they had transfer of 2,082 containers, showing a 7.5% growth. Mr. Speaker, the initiatives and programs that I've outlined have a single focus: the sustainable development of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, which includes a commitment to improving the lives of the residents. I'm pleased to confirm that as a result of sound fiscal management I spoke of earlier, there will be no new revenue measures over the coming fiscal period, Cayman Brac or Little Cayman. Furthermore, government is fulfilling its commitment to those most deserving within our society and will be increasing the monthly stipends paid to the elderly and the disabled, retired seamen, and veterans. Social assistance benefits will increase from $550 to $650 in 2018 January, and increased $750 in 2019. Former seamen and veterans is also set for the same increase of $650 January 2018, $750 January 2019. And civil service pensioners will also receive an increase in the same way if their pension is less than that amount. These initiatives, along with the arrivals and cargo results, show that Cayman Brac and Little Cayman continue to attract new residents and offer a high quality of life for its residents, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, turning attention now to the Owen Roberts International Airport. I am pleased to report that excellent progress has been made to date on the terminal building redevelopment. Plans are on track for completion in December of 2018, as scheduled at the start of construction. Some aspects of the project, such as the new customs and immigration areas, Mr. Speaker, are expected to come online as early as January 2018. This will leave a new departure hall as the main element of construction in 2018. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, design work is about to start on another facet of the Owen Roberts master plan. The scope of these works all relate to the airside and will include strengthening the runway, necessary in order to support the sustained use of the runway by larger aircraft, expanding the apron. This is necessary to provide parking for additional aircraft during the peak periods. It'll provide 2 additional Code C aircraft, such as the Boeing 737, and 1 Code E aircraft, such as the Boeing 777. Installing a paved perimeter road, which is a regulatory requirement, and Mr. Speaker, filling the ponds at the approach to runway 08, which is to help address a safety concern. Adding an extension to the runway to the west. This is to replace some of the runway which was lost on the eastern end to a project which was done in 2016 to meet a regulatory requirement for threshold setback. The completion of this design will inform the project timelines and cost. Should also mention that in Cayman Brac work will soon begin on upgrading the building, restrooms, and the tower at the Charles Kirkconnell International Airport, voted the best little airport in the region. Mr. Speaker, the CIAA continues to work towards the fulfillment of the objectives laid out in the 20-year master plan that was approved by the Cayman Islands government in 2014. This covers continued development of aeronautical and commercial activities at the 3 Owen Roberts Airport, Charles Kirkconnell Airport, and Edward Bawden Airport in Little Cayman. Apart from the development of physical infrastructure, there will continue to be a focus on improving passenger experience, strengthening commercial performance, and using technology to improve operational efficiency. Mr. Speaker, my notes here take me to the cruise port redevelopment. There's been quite a few statements, information, what do you say, false news, offered earlier, fake news. Thank you, Mr. Eden. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more than I had really intended to, Mr. Speaker, because I think it's important that we have the foundation that this cruise berthing and the expansion of the cargo port sits on. And I will start not at this election, but the previous election that the PPM government ran in their manifesto on the building of cruise berthing facility in Georgetown. And what that did, Mr. Speaker, was all of the previous sites and talk about North Sound, Red Bay, South Sound, East End, the vote and the mandate that was given to the government was Georgetown. Quickly after the election, we continued with what had been started by the previous administration to look at best practice. And best practice involved the hiring of PwC to do a business case if, number one, the cruise berthing facility was needed, and number two, what would be the results in the business case if it was decided that it wasn't needed? What could we expect? I don't think I can speak any higher, Mr. Speaker, than bringing one of the most recognized consulting firms, accounting firms in the world in under a best practice business case to give information and directions to the government. I think we will accept that. Mr. Speaker, the business case came back, and what it basically said was that if we were going to continue in the cruise business, we needed to look at building a cruise berthing facility. If we wanted to grow our business to 2.3 million was the number they put on it. If we didn't want to continue in the cruise business, if we wanted to not continue to attract the business, it would fall away to probably around 1 million passengers a year continuing on tender. the 2013 PwC business case, moved in to an environmental impact assessment that was done by Beard Consulting and Engineering. Mr. Speaker, after they finished, their report was that it would not have damage to 7 Mile Beach, which the government said if their report had come back with a danger to 7 Mile Beach, the project would be stopped. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, the government of the day made the decision to continue forward with the building of the cruise berthing facility, but under the review that we would move forward with maximum economic benefit for the country with the least amount of environmental impact. And by moving in that direction, we then re-entered negotiations for a consultant to see if the cruise berthing facility and cargo facility could be put in deeper water to lessen the impact of the dredging. Obviously, it was less expensive to build the facility closer to shore, so we accept that it was going to be more expensive to build it in deeper water. Mr. Speaker, following on with that, the consultants, engineers came back and said that it could be built in deeper water. So I give the leader of the opposition, my friend from North Side, the credit that that part of his fake news report was correct, that it would be built in deeper water. Mr. Speaker, in July of 2016, the international engineering firm Hasconic DHV were appointed by the Central Tenders Committee to undertake a civil engineering design works related to the piers. Later that year, in December 2016, the ministry issued a request for proposal seeking suitable qualified consultants to assist with the development of the contracts that would be required for the commercial, financial, legal aspects of the project. The consultants would also be required to draft the tender documents ahead of the final process. Now, Mr. Speaker, question of preliminary design. The contract and the model to build the cargo pier and the cruise berthing is a design, build, finance, maintain model. The preliminary design is done. That's what was required for companies to bid against, to see the preliminary design, then they take the preliminary and come up with the final design. Mr. Speaker, $300 million in capital costs was repeated many times. I will not repeat it again, but it's not correct. It is not correct. 50 to 100 million cruise line contribution. I don't know where that came from. Wrong. Where is the difference coming from? That's not applicable because the first one's wrong. Okay? The design, build, finance. Design. No, we're not repeating that again. Mr. Speaker, there was also a conversation about whether we needed the cruise berthing facility, whether we needed the cargo facility. I want to say this very clear. What we want from a policy standpoint is we want overnight visitors and we want crews. We want to balance, we want to manage them, and we want to make sure that we maximize the spend when they're in the Cayman Islands. And there is no government guarantee on this project. There is no risk to the government on this project. What this does is it gives you a way to get 2.3 million people closer to the market, to stay longer on the destination, to spend more because they're going to be here longer, it's going to be easier to get here, and you know, and I know, that there are more Caymanian entrepreneurs servicing the cruise industry with tours and attractions than there are in the overnight visitation. So that's the balance, that's the opportunity, and that's what we push forward for. Mr. Speaker, the one thing that I agree with, I wrote them down. One thing I agree with, Mr. Speaker, is we all want more education facilities. We want more spend on education. But our model to spend more on education is to grow revenue, strengthen the economy, and use that money for education, health, as we've identified. So this is a driver that makes a contribution to the gross income of this country. Then that money is taken to deliver the services. If we do not create opportunities to grow business in this country, we will not have the money to provide any services because revenue drives services. I hope that we will agree on this afterwards because I think we both want the same thing. Mr. Speaker, there was a couple questions about the transshipment of the cargo facility. It's a known fact in the shipping industry that ships are getting larger. That's accepted. The point that was being made that as the ships get larger, they will come less. Well, that is the key to the transshipment, because if you bring containers to Cayman and then they take those to ports that demand less containers, you have to come more often to bring those containers. We have 3 shipping companies that service. The amalgamation of being able, instead of running 3 ships twice a week, to run 1 ship twice a week gives you the same delivery time for less money, and it cuts the cost of the ocean transportation to the consumer in Cayman. The other question was, or statement was, the gantry crane, the rubber tower gantry crane, and that was going to be an expense. It's not going to be, the business case on it, Mr. Speaker, was that if you look at the other growing ports throughout this region, throughout the southeastern United States, throughout Europe, you will see gantry cranes at every container port because they are more efficient, they take less land, and they operate and maximize efficiency. That is the business case and the decision that was taken to, again, try to be more efficient and businesslike at the port. Mr. Speaker, I hope that that has answered most of the questions that was asked. I believe it did. I'm sure we can, happy to, if you want a sidebar, I'm happy to chat about it. Mr. Speaker, in March of 2017, it was announced that KPMG had won the bid, were appointed by Central Tenders Committee to provide financial and commercial services. That was what has come out. 2 months later, in May, the ministry initiated the process of pre-qualify the bidders for the next phase of the project. Pre-qualification means that the bidders have the ability to do the job before they're allowed to bid on it. Prospective bidders were tasked to demonstrate their ability to design, build, finance, and maintain the two cruise piers and expanded cargo facilities in keeping with the outlined business case approved by Cabinet. The ministry has now concluded its evaluation process, and having received approval from CTC, bidders were informed of results through the bonfire system through which submissions were made. Notifications were distributed last week. Mr. Speaker, 20 minutes. The Department of Tourism is a tactical unit within the ministry's portfolio, which has responsibility to aggressively promote the Cayman Islands in the global marketplace. Priorities for the Department of Tourism over the next fiscal period will include the development and implementation of the new National Tourism Plan, which is intended to guide the sustainable development and management of the Cayman Islands tourism industry for the next 5 years. Designing a cohesive and innovative global brand strategy and development of the DOT corporate website called Our Cayman. This new website will keep Cayman Islands community abreast of tourism activities conducted by the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism on a global level. While a great deal of attention has been paid to our strong air rivals, my ministry is equally proud of other outstanding achievements within the tourism industry. The Cayman Islands continues to receive recognition internationally as a top-class destination, with several aspects of our tourism product rating among the best in the world. In addition to a variety of properties, attractions, and beaches, earning such acclaim, the Department of Tourism also received 3 prestigious Impact Awards for marketing from the Internet Marketing Association. Mr. Speaker, winning accolades and recognition at the international level highlights the high caliber of work carried out behind the scenes by the Department of Tourism to promote the destination. Mr. Speaker, moving from marketing to education and research, in early 2017, the company name of Cayman Turtle Farm formally changed to Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center Limited. This was done to reflect the company's strategic shift and focus on initiatives and operations that have sufficient positive impact on the conservation of sea turtles. The importance of the company's captive bred turtle release initiatives were demonstrated in the results of a 2-year study looking at the genetic relationships between wild sea turtles in Cayman and the turtles in the captive breeding program, Cayman Turtle Center. Mr. Speaker, the study was conducted by the Department of Environment under a grant from the United Kingdom government through the Darwin Plus program and revealed that a minimum of 50%, in other words, at least half of the nesting green sea turtles in the wild in Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman were contributed by captive bred turtles released from the Cayman Turtle Center. Furthermore, a socioeconomic study of the turtle meat consumption and supply in Cayman showed the vital importance of the company's captive bred turtle meat production as a means of preserving sea turtles in the wild around our islands. That year-long study, which was conducted by the Department of Environment under the same Darwin Plus grant, revealed the numerical statistics that if captive bred turtle meat is not produced and made available for purchase here, the current sea turtle population in our waters would most likely be wiped out within a few short months by poaching due to the strong demand for sea turtle meat as a traditional culinary delicacy. Therefore, the company's production of turtle meat for local consumption remains an essential component of its contribution to conservation of turtles in the wild. The results from those studies, which applied solid scientific methods, give compelling reasons for the company's determination to focus even more intently on conservation, education, and research, while continuing to ensure the availability of legal, captive-raised sea turtle for consumption in the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to advise the company's last bank loan was paid off in August of 2017 as an initiative of core government to significantly reduce long-term debt and the associated interest costs. The company's last remaining long-term debt, which is in the form of a bond, will be fully paid off in March of 2019. Mr. Speaker, this means that funding to the Turtle Center, which amounts to $8.5 million in 2018 and $9.5 million in 2019, will significantly reduce when all debt is paid. Without the sovereign debt payment, we can look forward to reduction in 2020 to approximately $4 million in the funding. Mr. Speaker, as we drive visitation, we operate attractions through the Tourism Attraction Board, and it manages Pedro St. James, Queen Elizabeth Botanic Park, Hell, and the Pirates Week Festival. They continue to increase appeal, and the attractions continue to do well for our visitors. Since families are an important part of the market, the Children's Garden Project at Botanic Park was officially launched in August 2017 and is anticipated to be completed in late 2018. Admission numbers in the attraction are projected to significantly increase upon completion, as this new garden will be a welcome addition to the park for families, tourists, and local residents alike. Notwithstanding the challenges with time sensitivity for cruise passengers to get to the Eastern District, a new cruise line contract is to be finalized with Asmara Cruise in November 2017. This is a result of the synergy between the Turtle Center and the Tourism Attraction Board. Mr. Speaker, the Botanic Park and Pedro St. James are consequently hoping to achieve an increase in admissions of approximately 10% in the upcoming high season as results of these efforts. The Pirates Week Festival is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. For the first time, the festival has been condensed into 5 days to make it more marketable to overseas visitors and to target new age travelers who are becoming increasingly interested in festival tourism. Mr. Speaker, turning our attention now to our national airline. Having a national airline that can be strategically deployed to support tourism industry growth provides our islands with a tremendous advantage over many of our regional neighbors. Within our major U.S. source market, Cayman Airways provides scheduled services to 5 U.S. gateways, as well as to Jamaica, Cuba, and La Ceiba. In March of this year, Roatan was added and is shaping up to be a successful route, while strategies for Miami and Cuba continue to be reviewed to mitigate against the shrinking Cuban market. In 2018, Cayman Airways will celebrate its 50th year of operations and will also begin phasing in its new fleet of Boeing 737 MAX 8s. These new planes extend our reach and are capable of reaching virtually all North America and all of Central America and the Caribbean and much of South America. In addition to offering more seating capacity, these aircraft are more reliable, offer significant cost savings with respect to fuel and maintenance costs. When we think of Cayman Airways, destinations come to mind, but it is often overlooked that the airline is also a major employer of Caymanians. Of its island-based employees, 93% are Caymanian or PR residents. Over the past year, June 16th to June 2017, Cayman Airways paid over $20 million in salaries and pensions, contributions to staff based here in the Cayman Islands. Those funds remain here, Mr. Speaker. Home circulating within our economy, supporting hundreds of Caymanian families, giving opportunity, and adding to our tourism market. In addition, they're providing the employment and opportunity.
Order.
We must never forget the incredible services rendered by Cayman Airways before and after Hurricanes Ivan and Paloma. The devastating impact of Hurricanes Irma and Jose provide a stark reminder of the compounded effect that lack of aircraft and airlift can have on the economies of small island states. At that time, we were truly fortunate, Mr. Speaker, to have Cayman Airways at our side. In terms of commercial value, a series of independent economic impact carried out over several years have consistently revealed that Cayman Airways' contribution to the country is in the region of $200 million annually. Therefore, through its investment in the airline, government consistently receives a tenfold return on its annual purchase from Cayman Airways. Mr. Speaker, there can be little doubt that our national airline plays a key role in our country's tourism and economic development strategies. For Cayman Airways, this means that the profit center is always the country first, giving national interest priority even over the airline's own profit-producing ability. Mr. Speaker, by supporting statutory authority, government is helping to ensure Caymanians are employed and able to provide services in support of the tourism industry. And Cayman Airways is not unique with respect to the employment of Caymanians. 96% of the staff at Cayman Turtle Center are Caymanian or PR. Each year, $3.5 million is paid out in salaries. Mr. Speaker, 96% of the staff at the Cayman Island Airport Authority are Caymanians. 10 million CI dollars is paid out in salaries annually. The Port Authority has 152 staff. 99% are Caymanians. Mr. Speaker, 10 million CI dollars is paid out annually in salaries. Mr. Speaker, last year alone, 4 entities paid out over $43 million in salaries to Caymanian employees. That is 43 million CI dollars circulating in this economy, contributing to the development of our communities, improving the quality of life, and I dare say doing a great job in creating the middle class and strengthening it with opportunity for Caymanians in this country. Mr. Speaker, Cayman Airways has 400 plus employees. Cayman Island Airport, 186. Turtle Farm, 102. Port Authority, 150. I don't think I have to go any farther to say what that means to the economy of these Cayman Islands. Honorable members, the results I have spoken of today are due to the forward-thinking strategies, policies, and decisions driven by this government, through my ministry, supported by partners and stakeholders. Milestones have been met because of vision, leadership, and inclusion, and are based on the recognition that more can be achieved through collaboration, partnerships, than working in silos. While public-private partnerships are vital, I also wish to stress the importance of public-public partnerships because it takes all government units working in harmony with private sector to deliver a tourism product that travelers will want to visit, return to many times over, and enthusiastically recommend to their family and friends. Mr. Speaker, I began my address with a recap of the last 4 years and will end by sharing my vision for the next 4 years through 2021. Air arrivals will cross 400,000 threshold by the end of 2017. They will grow to over 450,000 by 2020. Growth in air arrivals will be supported by 1,200 more rooms coming to market through a variety of new existing hotel developments Airbnb, and Airbnb. These properties, once they come on stream, will not only add diversity to our tourism product and provide us with new market sectors to attract, but more importantly, they will increase our room stock capacity by 20%. Mr. Speaker, advancements on the port redevelopment will enable Grand Cayman to remain as a port of call on shipping itineraries and will expand our capacity to 2.3 million passengers on an annual basis. The new cargo port will allow us to accept larger ships and keep the cost down. The takeaway from all these initiatives, Mr. Speaker, is that the Cayman Islands tourism industry is growing. The necessary infrastructure is being developed in tandem. On the basis, there is good reason to be optimistic for the future of our Cayman Islands. As I like to say, there's a bright light ahead of us. By maintaining the environment for success, we are building another story on the firm foundation that has been laid since the beginning of our tenure. More importantly, our people are benefiting from the associated job creation, training, education, and upward mobility opportunities. In terms of employment, hundreds of Caymanians remain employed in good jobs within the ministries, departments, and statutory authorities, supported by the success of the tourism industries. 90% Cayman Airways, 96% Cayman Airport Authority, 96% Cayman Turtle Center, 80% Tourism Attraction Board, and 99% Port Authority. And I've taken the time, Mr. Speaker, to explain that we are working to do more, to give the skill sets, to educate and bring more people into the industry. This is the barometer by which we should be measured, the positive impact that tourism is having on the lives of our people. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I have the privilege of leading an incredible team who are adept at leveraging our marketing and advertising efforts to continually raise our game and attract more visitors to these islands. It would be remiss of me not to offer a word of thanks to Councillor David White, and I look forward to his update on the transportation and sports tourism. I also thank my Chief Officer, Strand Bodden, Director of Tourism, Ms. Rosa Harris, PAs, Tisha Conley, Liz Walton-Thompson, and all the hardworking staff of the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport, as well as the other hardworking civil servants that make so many things, especially this budget document, happen in the right time, as well as our industry partners in the private sector, whom we continue to work closely with. Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank members of the various government boards and the private citizens who have supported the Ministry of Tourism by freely giving of their time for the benefit of this country. Finally, I would like to close by thanking you, Mr. Speaker, and my caucus and cabinet colleagues for their support and collaboration, and to the Premier for his commendable leadership of our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Premier, can we have the motion for adjournment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the adjournment of this honorable House until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Thank you. The question is that this honorable House do now adjourn until 10 a.m. Thursday, the 2nd of November, 2017. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.